Welcome everyone to the All Games New and Old Gaming Federation Superstars of Gaming. We've got a review packed night for you tonight, but before we get to that, let's go backstage where Vicious Trisha is standing by with the Meeple Man, Sandy Ravage. Take it away, Trisha.
Alright, Meeple Man, David Rodriguez is reviewing Twisted Fables tonight. What can you tell us about the game?
Yeah. Vicious Trisha look very nice tonight. But not as nice as the Meeple Man, yeah! Look at that! If you look really closely, you can almost see the muscle definition. Yeah, only partially obscured by body hair.
Meeple Man, the game.
Have you ever seen a hairy meeple?
No.
Oh, you have not, because the Meeple Man is one of a kind, brothers! Yeah!
Twisted Fables, the game.
Yeah, you're right. We're not here to talk about the Meeple Man. Not tonight. No, we are not. We're here to talk about this game, Twisted Fables. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the game?
That's a good question, Trisha. This game, very exciting. All kinds of crazy fairy tale women. You got Alice in Wonderland. Yeah. You got Snow White. You know Snow White, the poison apple, yeah. Have you ever eaten a poison apple?
No.
No, you have not. But you could be Red Riding Hood or Match Girl. Ooh, so many different choices. It's a game filled with crazy madness. It is a deck building, one-on-one fighting game, yeah. And it had over 2,000 people backing it on Kickstarter. And that's a good number, but you know what's even more important numbers? No, you do not. 2 and 1, because you can play 2-on-2, you can play 1-on-1. Yeah, lots of choices in this game. It's cyberpunk, it's magic, and I don't think you can handle the madness of this game. Oh yeah, dig it!
Alright, good luck, David.
Yeah!
Huh. That was weird. Usually I introduce my own show, but sure. Do I have a gaming federation? What even is that? Anyway, yeah, so today I am going to be reviewing Twisted Fables. It is a game where you basically are recreating a 2D fighting game, like a Street Fighter, for instance, and what they've done is they've taken some of the female characters from various fables. They turned them into these like weird cyberpunky kind of magical characters and stuck them in this really bizarre world where they are fighting each other for some reason. Sometimes their backstories touch on that, sometimes they maybe don't quite as much, but either way, it's a really interesting premise. This game came out in 2021 from Diemension Games, and it was designed by Gang Wang and Zhang Gao. So let me take you to the gameplay overview so you can see exactly how this game works, and then we'll go to our final thoughts. Okay, so I have this game set up basically for a 2-player game. I didn't put out the second player board just because of space constraints. I probably wouldn't space things out quite this way because usually when you play your cards, you're going to play them kind of up here between your player board and the board you're moving around on. And then also you get twist cards later that you usually put kind of down below this. But because of my camera setup, I have to kind of squish things together to show you more things. So when you start the game, you are going to get your player board and put it on this cool plastic tray here. And it's going to tell you what your maximum health is. And you're going to go ahead and put the red pin there, or whatever you call that. You are going to put the blue one kind of down here. This is a measure of your power, which is basically how you purchase new cards in the game. It always starts at 0. Over here you have your defense. It starts at 0, and then every character has a maximum level that they can get up to. In Red Riding Hood's case, it is 6. And then up here, as indicated here, you're going to have your epic threshold. And this, when your health goes down to the point where it hits this or goes past it, at that point you're going to pick one of your special epic cards from here to add into your hand immediately, and then the other 2 are going to be removed from the game. Those are very powerful cards, so you only get them kind of later in the game. So let me tell you how their deck is set up here. So we have all of our basic cards over here. We've got the attack, the defense, the movement, and then the wild here. So depending on which card you buy, it could be worth 1, 2, or 3 of any of those things, except for the wild, which is just worth the 1. And when you start the game, you're going to take 3 of each of the value 1 basic cards. So 3 attack, 3 defense, and 3 movement. And then over here, your Fable cards. These are very specific decks that are in a very specific order. Every character has their own different one. And it shows you on their card here exactly which cards are in there and in what order they go. But you're going to take the top one of each, and you're going to add that to your deck, and then you'll just shuffle all those together. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to start, if you're the first player, you're going to start with a hand of 4 cards. I'm going to go ahead and pretend that she's the second player, and she's going to start with 6. Now, there's basically 3 phases of the game. So phase 1 is going to be to discard all of the cards in your play area. Now, the only reason you'll have any out is if you've played an ongoing skill, and those you'll play on your turn, and then we'll discard back when you get to the beginning of your next turn. And then you're going to reset your defense down to 0. So if you have any defense left after your opponent is gone and it gets back to you, you're going to put it right back down to 0 again. So that unfortunately does not stick with you. Then when you get to phase 2 of the game, that is the activation phase. That's when all the exciting things happen. Now you can do most of the actions as much as you want, as long as you have the power or the abilities to do so. And you can do it in any order you want. There is one exception. One of the actions you can do at this phase is to focus. And when you focus, you basically are choosing a card from your hand to destroy. So that'll take it out of your deck entirely. It will not be shuffled back in. And that's a good way to call your deck down, so you only have better cards and you can be a little more efficient that way. So if you choose focus, that's the only thing that you're going to do. But other things you could do is all going to be based on the cards you have. So let me show you a few of my basic cards here. So I have this one, which is a movement. So for instance, let me skip this over to the side. If I played this one down, I could then, because that is a movement of 1, I can move her 1 space. Now anytime you do that, you can then raise your power by 1 as well. So if this was a 2 or 3 movement card, I would get 2 or 3 power instead. So after that point, I could, if I chose to, play a defense card. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That'll move my defense up 1. And then again, I'm going to add a power based on the value of the card I just played. Now, when my opponent's turn comes around, if she hits me for damage, I'm going to first take it away from my defense. So it's basically just going to soak up some damage for you. The other thing I could do is a basic attack, because that is just a one attack. It will do 1 point of damage to my opponent. And, you know, if it was me that had just gotten hurt, I would go ahead and take my little life counter here and I would move that down 1 peg as well. And again, when you attack, when you play that card, you can also gain a power for that. Now, it's worth noting that you cannot attack nothing. If you're not close up to the person, you can't just play attack cards to raise your attack. You have to attack something. And as far as movement, you cannot move into the same spot as your opponent. So if you're going to play a movement card and go in that direction, you have to be able to go past the person. Otherwise, you're just going to stop right where they're at. Same thing if you get to the edge of the board. And with 2 players, you're going to ignore the furthest left and right spots. But in this case, if for some reason I was trying to move back, like if I played a 3 card and I was, say, here, I would move 1. I couldn't move any further back. But I would still get the 3 power for playing that. So it is something you could do to gain a lot of extra power. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can play a skill card. Your skills come from your Fable deck. And let me show you one here. So this one has or actually all of them will have a certain type of basic card attached to it. So in this case, if you can see that, it's got the shield. So this one has a defense card attached to it. And then it'll do whatever it says on the card here. So in this case, it's range 1, which means I can attack the person next to me. It'll do damage 1 to them, and it'll give me defense as well. And then also has an ongoing ability. But if I wanted to play this down, I would have to, let's pretend I didn't play all these yet. I'm going to pick these up. So I would have to get a basic card that matches the type that this skill card wants. In this case, it is defense, and I would play that down with it together. Now, in this case, when I play down that defense card, I do not raise my power. You don't get the power benefit when you put down a basic card with a skill, but it lets you do some cool stuff. So pretty useful to do. Now, let's say I've done a few things. I've got my power up a little bit. Now is the time when I could choose, well, actually, during any point in your turn, you could choose to power up things. So you can then basically buy cards. So I can pick from any of my Fable cards, not the epic cards again, because that only happens when you reach that epic threshold. But I could buy any one of these or any of the basic cards. And the way you know how much they cost is up in the top right corner. It's going to have a number there. In this case, this one is a 2. And you would have to pay 2 power if you wanted to purchase that. The different basic cards all have a different value. All the 1 basic cards just cost 1. If you want the wild, it costs 2. For any of them that have a value of 2, it costs 3. And if you want one that has a value of 3, it costs 6. But those could be really useful for very obvious reasons. But a lot of the skills too, or the Fable cards too, when you play them down, it can kind of depend on what value card you put down as far as, you know, how much damage it does or how big an effect it has. Also worth noting that when you play those Fable cards down, you do only play down 1 basic card with it. You can't stack a whole bunch in there and do a whole bunch of extra damage. That's one thing that I was doing wrong when I was first playing. So then after that, you could also do component actions if your character is one that has certain rules that would let them do that. Red Riding Hood is not so much, but some of them will. You can also play an epic card if you have one. Again, that only gets into your hand when you cross that damage threshold, and then it just kind of goes in your deck as normal. This one doesn't necessarily require a basic card played down with it, but it is a very powerful card almost always, and you can kind of pick which one you want to go with. Another thing worth noting is as you get down through these different decks, over here you will eventually hit a card with this symbol. And that is a twist card. There's one about halfway through each deck and then one at the very bottom. When you reveal that, that immediately gets played out. Again, they usually wanted to put underneath your character word. I'm going to put it over here for a minute. And that has basically an ongoing power that will affect you through the rest of the game. Usually those are pretty useful. So there's a lot of incentive to kind of focus on maybe one of these decks at a time. You certainly don't have to do that, but if you want to get those twists out faster, that is certainly a way to do that. So then you get to the end phase, and at that point you're going to reset your power track back to 0. So if you didn't spend all your power, you don't get to keep any left over. That goes right back to 0. Then you're going to discard all the cards from your hand. So if there's any you didn't play, those will go into your discard pile, wherever you choose to put that. Then any cards that you played down, so if I had played down, if I play down these, those will go into my discard as well. So you're basically moving all your cards, except for any that have an ongoing effect, into your discard pile. Then you're going to draw back up to 6 cards from your deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're ready for your next turn as far as that goes. If you have any effects that say at the end of your turn, do this thing, then in that case, you will do that thing. So that's basically how it works. You just keep playing back and forth, taking turns until one person is reduced to 0 hit points. And it sounds pretty basic, but the different characters really do have some different twists in terms of how they play. So it can vary quite a lot as far as your overall tactics go. Another thing that I will show you is these cards over here. I didn't put them out just for the basic game here, but these are relic cards. And when you're playing with these will go on each of the spaces that you're playing on. And when I play with these, I usually will put the models on these circles above it, just so I can see those cards better. But the way these work is when you are on a space that has one of these relic cards, you can discard any skill card and then activate this relic card. And usually each one will have will be affected by the power of the skill card that you played. Once you've done that, you will take that, and you'll put it over in the discard area, and then, I should have put this over here, and then you'll go ahead and draw another one of these relic cards to put out there. And those are kind of neat. They have all sorts of different effects. Some will let you destroy cards, or let you play a skill that you've discarded. There's all kinds of different things that they'll let you do, but it adds a little different twist to the game and gives you a different reason to move around other than just to fight your opponent. So that's kind of a neat way to do it. There is also a 2-on-2 mode. I'm not going to go into that right here, but that is an option as well if you want to do that. Other than that, I think that's the basic gist of it. I will say, I probably should have said this up front, but the components I'm using are all from the deluxe edition. So if you get the regular retail edition and you don't buy any upgrades, I'm not sure what all upgrades are going to be available at retail, just to let you know. But I'll try to give you an idea of how this will look, because it's going to be a little different. I'm just going to show you the difference in the board, because I don't have the standees punched out. But basically when you do that, you're going to use, I believe it's these relic cards, and you're just going to play with the board being this row of cards that you walk on, and it'll be the same number of them. And then instead of the models, you would have standees, but otherwise the gameplay works the same. So it's just a little bit different. I like the mat quite a lot myself, so I'm hoping that when this comes to retail, they will go ahead and release that as something you can purchase as well, because I think it is much nicer to have it. But anyway, that's enough of the gameplay for now. I'll give you hopefully give you at least a basic idea of how the game plays, and we'll go to our final thoughts. All right, I hope that gameplay overview is helpful for you to understand the game a little bit better. So now we're going to talk about our final thoughts on the game, starting with the art. I think the art is incredible in this game. I really like it a lot. Just super good quality. It's exactly an art style that I love. Each picture is very, action-packed or kind of, magical looking. It really gives you a sense of the different characters. I frankly couldn't ask for better quality art in this game. The only caveat to that is that while I think most of the art is not overly sexual, there are a couple instances where that's not the case. Little Mermaid has, I don't know, like 4 or 5 maybe needlessly sexy pics, I would say, and Match Girl has like 1. I don't know if you'd agree that the others are all pretty much fine. You could tell me your opinion, because maybe I'm missing something that's certainly possible.
I think they're all a little over the top, honestly. Like, the artwork is very well done, but it's definitely on the over-sexualizing side of artwork. And I think that it's that way for just about all of them, or at least almost all of them have at least one picture that is kind of a little over the top, in my opinion. Not so much that I'm like, it turns me away from the artwork, but it is something that, I can definitely see there being gamers out there, especially female gamers out there, that do feel that way. And especially for a game where all the characters are female. I think it's just, it's a little over the top.
So let me, because I'm asking this conceding that I'm probably 100% wrong. So don't, but I would agree that like a lot of the characters, the girls are sort of, they may have like some skin showing here or there, or what have you. I maybe just not have realized that, but I didn't notice a lot of except for the 2 that I mentioned, which are way over the top.
So I think you're just focusing on the posing. I'm looking at how they're dressed, how tight the clothes are. It's some of the poses are definitely, but it's on top of that, they're all skin tight clothing. It's all very skimpy most of them are all very skimpy clothing. So it's all just a little over the top.
Yeah, I think, I think that it goes past my brain. It's not because I'm looking at the pictures and being like, ooh, look how sexy, and I love it. It's not that. I think it's the same part of my brain that with women's wrestling, where it's like they're all wearing, stuff that is pretty revealing, and look, I don't want to get a big thing about wrestling, but the women wrestlers are usually pretty attractive, and I'm not going to lie, I noticed that the first time or 2 I see them, but after that, I'm just like, oh, these women are such badasses, and they're so cool, and they, they fight real hard, and they're great athletes, and I stopped thinking in those ways about them. So I think to me, if they're not being like, ooh, look at this, I kind of forget almost in a way that that's I guess, really, could be off-putting to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird to say that coming from a guy that, after a point, that I just kind of gloss past that unless it's so, like overtly, like, this is a pose out of Playboy, but I absolutely trust your opinion on those things, where I might not totally see it, because I have the privilege of being a dude. I 100%, I'm not arguing against you at all, but it's like, I'm trying to like psychoanalyze myself and figure out why I felt that way. But anyway, that was my take on it, but by all means, I'm sure you can look at the Kickstarter page and see a lot of the art. If you're worried about it or wondering to what degree, you might feel this way, you can look at that. Or I did do an unboxing video, and I flipped through most of the pages in the art book, which I think has all the art from the game. So if you want to see it all there, that's another way you could kind of check and see what your thoughts are about that. But yeah, I take her opinion on these things more than mine, so you can ignore me. It's fine.
So the components, I'm having a little bit of a trouble judging the components on this game, because we did get the Kickstarter and we got the deluxe edition, which to my understanding is not coming out in retail. So it's a little bit harder for me to kind of gauge and give feedback on the components, because I know what we got is not going to be what you can go out and buy. So from what we got, I think the components are really, really great and well done. The models are awesome. The player board is really cool, and I like that it has like all the pegs and stuff like that. The cards are a little bit on the flimsy side. Yeah. I feel like most games have a little bit thicker card stock for their playing cards, especially since you have to shuffle them a lot. I think if you get it, you definitely want to sleeve them.
Yeah.
And then the play mat is cool. The tokens are really nice. Again, a lot of that stuff, though, is not, from my understanding, is not going to be in the retail. So, the cardboard standees are a decent card stock. I think the biggest component thing from my understanding of the retail is that it doesn't come with a playing board, and you just use some of the cards to kind of represent the spaces, which I think can lead to some issues because the cards can slide around. So that's my biggest issue with the components and what you're going to be able to get in retail.
Yeah, I tried to reach out to Diemension Games through their Kickstarter page to see what exactly was going to be available for release, and I never heard back from them. That could be for any reason. So, the one we got was $75 through the Kickstarter, but then for everything they also have an MSRP, and the MSRP for that was $165, which that's a lot of money, and I don't think if that was sitting on the shelf, people would shell out that money for this game. And I say that with saying that if I somehow bought this without looking at what I was paying at retail, and then got it home and played it, and then looked at my receipt, I don't think I'd actually be mad, but it's more than Gloomhaven is, and I don't think it's, I don't think that would happen. And I think they're getting the MSRP through, because if you look at the Kickstarter, it has it broken down, like every single add-on, if you just wanted to get like the core box and then this one add-on, what the MSRP would be. I don't know if all those things are coming out to retail or not. I don't know if they're just going to come out with the core box and probably the expansions that each have 2 characters, which all that is included in the one we have, or if they're actually going to sell the neoprene mat for the playing area and the models and whatnot. I'm not sure. I'm guessing if you added all those individual components up, the MSRP, it probably would be around $165, which again is a lot. It is something where I can look at a game like that and be like, okay, well, if I just get the core box now, that's fine, and I can slowly expand later, and the big price starts to bother me less because you're buying all that stuff over time. But it is kind of hard to, we got a steal of a deal. If we paid MSRP for that, it'd be like, wow, this is pushing it. Like, this game better be great, because that's pushing it. Yeah. But other than that, I agree with everything you said. The models are good hard plastic. They're not like the real bendy stuff that you get in a lot of a lot of board games. Neoprene mat's great. It is just the cards are I mean, they're not bad or anything. It's just they're not the nice, like, they don't have the nice linen finish. They don't feel especially thick. I think you're right. A deck building game, you're going to shuffle all the time. You might want to sleeve these up if you can. I don't know. I'm not sure if they'll fit in like the box that I have or not. If I do that, I think I could probably get them in there somehow. But it might be a good idea just to kind of keep them in a little bit better shape. So going on there to the theme. So if you've heard me talk about Kickstarters before, you know that I'm probably really annoying and that I'll back something because I'll decide I like it, and then I just don't even pay attention to like all the updates almost at all, except for the ones that are telling me when the pledge manager is going to open and when it's shipping. Everything else I'm like, okay, you added a rule, cool, I'll figure that out when I get there. I can't change it now anyway, so who cares? This one was different. I still didn't follow in a lot of the production stuff, but they'd send like a thing, okay, well, this is what our version of Snow White's all about, and like here's kind of how she is in the original story, but here's how we've changed her, and they've really created this cool cyberpunk magic infused world that I find really intriguing. I mean, some of these characters, if you read their backgrounds, I mean, it's getting kind of to be a far cry from what they originally were. Like, I get the strong impression that like Snow White looks pretty damn villainous, in my opinion, and like, Dorothy is like a Terminator or something. I don't like. It's different, but it's inspired by the stories. But I like it a lot, and when you're playing, I mean, there's not like really a story to it exactly, but I do think that they've tried to take the background of those characters and fit them to how they play. So in that sense, I think the theme is strongly integrated in the game.
Yeah, I think the idea behind it and the way they changed the characters is awesome. I really love the way that they altered these classic fairy tale heroines and changed them, and a lot of them are pretty villainous now. But I like that. I think it's a really cool spin on these classic fairy tales. As far as the theme incorporated in the game, I kind of feel like it could be skinned anything, and they just happened to pick this. But that being said, I think it works, and they're like the characters, the way their cards are, like, kind of it makes sense for that character. And each of the characters play completely different, so it's not just like, oh, I'm being Dorothy, even though, and she has the same exact powers as Mulan or something like that. So I think they did a pretty good job of incorporating the theme with the gameplay of the characters themselves. As far as like them fighting each other, I'm not sure, but as far as the character itself, I think that they did a good job of incorporating the theme.
Yeah, I have no idea why these women are mad at each other.
Yeah,
it might have said something in the background that I read all that background quite a while back now. I don't remember when it first came to Kickstarter. It's been a bit. Maybe it was all explained, but I, for the life of me, don't remember why they're so all against each other. I don't know. I see like a few of them might get along, but I guess not. I don't know why. So.
For the gameplay, I think it's a fun gameplay, and it's a deck building game, and it's one-on-one fighting with the models, and you have a track that you're moving back and forth on, which I've seen in other games. I think we even have a game or two that has a similar mechanic. But I think they've done a good job of incorporating it and kind of changing it a little bit to make it its own game. I really like that each character has their own deck, and that as you buy cards from your own deck, you unlock special abilities. And so it kind of really makes you think about, do I want to use this skill card, or do I want to just use the basic action so that I can get more purchase points and be able to buy these other things and kind of upgrade and level up.
Yeah, definitely. You may or may not have gone to this. I love deck building games. And at some point I was like, well, okay, I don't know if I should buy a deck building game that's just a straight deck building game. And at its core, that is kind of what this is. I mean, there's not a lot of, if you played deck building games before, I think you're going to catch on to this game very quickly. There is kind of the added thing of the movement, because you're right, you're moving across that 2D board, kind of like a 2D fighting game. And that does add a lot to it, I think. But it's cool how like you feel like your character really is like progressively sort of leveling up. And I mean, arguably you could say that in any deck building game, because you're always getting better cards and better cards. But I think, because of those the different Fable decks, when you get to those things like you were saying where it unlocks like a special ability, you really feel like level up, and like
yeah.
and it's funny, it's just like one more little thing, but it's so
it can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't really think it adds that much, but it can actually add quite a bit.
Yeah, it gives you something to strive for, and it helps you. I mean, I don't know if it helps you, but it creates this interesting decision. Like, do you want to spread out your skills and like get like the first I forgot the twist cards in each deck maybe, or do you want to like just focus on one and really go hard in that area? It's neat because you're really picking how your character progresses. By if 3 different people played the same character in separate games, they might not end up with a really similar focus necessarily, or a really similar way that they've done things, which is great because I think it adds to the variety and replayability of the game as well. So I guess on to the final scores here. So I've gotten back and forth a lot on this. I feel like I say this about almost every game. I really do. But this one actually, I feel like I also say, this one though is really tough.
But this one.
This one though, let me tell you, every new experience shows me that it can be tougher. So, I'm going to talk about what I like about this game. At the end, I'm going to talk myself into a number between the two that I'm deciding. Because I've gone back and forth, and eventually I'm just going to spit out a number, and that's what it's going to be. So, I love this game. I think it's fantastic. For a person who really likes deck building games, this one is really high on my list for those games. Really high. I can't think of really anything I don't like about this game. I wish the cards were a little bit nicer, but nitpick. I love how different all the characters feel, and they feel real different. I love the idea of I'm going to play this character that maybe I know, but I'm going to play against a character that I haven't played against that much, and that's going to make it different. I like that you can add in the relic cards if you want, and that's going to make it different. And, variety that's all boring is not good. The variety that is awesome, as you might have guessed. And this game is really, really awesome. And I've tried to compare it against other games that I will not yet name because I have not necessarily reviewed them, that might get a perfect score in our collection. And I was like, does this earn the perfect score? Because I cannot find anything I don't like about it, and I can only say how much I enjoy it and like this game a ton. I feel like my voice is changing because I'm so excited about this game. I really like this game. Do I like it as much as those other games that I might score a perfect 10? Some of which might be deck building games. Anything's possible. Yeah, I do. I'm actually going to give this one a 10. I love it. If they make expansion in the future, I will buy it. If they make a second Huge Box Deluxe Edition that's $165, I will try to find it used. And because that's a lot of damn money. But if they put it on Kickstarter and it's half off again, I'll buy it. And again, like I said, if I had somehow accidentally paid $165 for that, I might be like, oh my god, that's so damn much money. But after playing it, I'd be like, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It should be cheaper, probably, but I'm good with it. Yeah, I've talked myself into it. Yep. I love this game enough. I'm going to give it a perfect 10.
Alright. I do not think of it as highly. I do really enjoy this game a lot. For the deluxe edition that we have, I would probably give it an 8, maybe even a 9. For the $165 retail price, I would probably give it an 8. Like, that really kind of, like, makes me go, maybe. It really makes me think about it a lot more. Knowing that the version that we got is not coming out to retail, and knowing what doesn't come with that basic retail box set knocks it down a little bit more for me. So my score for the retail, at least my understanding of what's coming out in the retail, is going to be a 7. The fact that it doesn't come with any mat is a really big drawback to me. And like, I know they say you can play with the cards, but I can see like so much of what you're doing depends on how far apart your characters are. And I can see those cards getting flagged around and then messing up and not being able to tell if you're within range or not. They could have easily, changed the player mat so that it was more like a traditional mat that you get with a board game, so that it came with the player's mat. There's some areas that I could see them cutting back on to make it so that it still has that price point that they were aiming for, but without losing kind of, in my opinion, key components to the game. And so because of that, the retail is going to be a 7 for me.
Yeah, and I guess I should have gone into that a little more. Okay, and this is assuming that what they have on the Kickstarter page is still what they are planning. It doesn't look... I tried to look around to see if it was actually available out there yet. I don't think it is yet. But the basic retail core box comes with 6 characters, not 10. So it doesn't have Match Girl, Little Mermaid, Scheherazade, and Dorothy, I believe. It has the other 6. No miniatures. It has standees. It doesn't have the playmat. You just use like the back of the relic cards or the front of them if you're playing with relic cards, and lay them out, in however many spaces. And you play with that. It still has the plastic player boards, I believe. But I think that's everything. And at least at that time they were planning for that to be $45, which is not a bad price. But I do agree. If I just had that box, I would still probably think it was a great game, but it probably would drop me down to a 9 just because it wouldn't be as blown away by it. And if I tried to buy all that at once, I'd be like, oh, this is a lot of money. I think, if I bought the core box, I'd be like, okay, I'll play with this, and then I'll slowly add in other stuff. Although, if they actually come out with all those extras for sale, get the playmat. I would get the playmat first before the models or the characters or anything. Even though those characters and models, they're all great. But, I think the playmat is, I agree, that's a big deal, I feel like. And I also agree that even if they just use, a paper sheet in there that you could, unfold and use as a playmat, it would have been nicer than just having to use the backs of cards. That's not very exciting, but... Anyway, any other thoughts on the game?
No, it's a really fun game. If you like deck building and kind of like one-on-one, there is a 2-on-2 option as well. We didn't actually try that out yet. Now, is that one that's not in the basic?
Yeah, so at least according to the Kickstarter, and again, I don't know, I tried to find out, but I just couldn't. At least according to the Kickstarter, that was something that you could add on, the 2v2 mode, but I believe it is not in the core box on its own, which is why we didn't go into any big part of reviewing that here. Is that about it then?
Yep.
All right. Well, those are our thoughts. I gave it a 10. You gave it an 8.
8.
Okay. So that's a very high score. Even yours is very high. So that's good. Great game. When it comes to retail, I highly recommend checking it out. Anyway, if you've liked this video, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you'll know the next time we put a video out. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye. Yeah, the other side's okay.
What the heck?
I have to be like, ugh. Lost track of where I was going. That's okay. It's hard to do this. Just off the top of my head because it's crazy. I kind of like the sleeves. Feel good. Yeah. It seems like you're just being cruel for the, if you're gonna stab it, eat it. I don't even remember that.
This is strange.
Okay. it, man.